an hour and a half. Look at these images. Turkish sailors at the port of Novorossiysk recorded what they described as scenes from hell. The night sky lit up by massive explosions, air defense systems frantically firing in all directions in panic. And then, silence, followed by a secondary fireball so huge. What? What is that? Which was seen from miles away. To understand what happened that night, we first need to understand what Novorossiysk represented. No, it wasn't just a port, it was a symbol. Located in the heart of Krasnodar, on the coast of the Black Sea, Novorossiysk was the place where Russians believed they were safe. It was where Moscow's elite spent their vacations. It was where the Black Sea Fleet had taken refuge after Sevastopol in occupied Crimea became impossible to defend. Attack after attack by Ukraine turned the port of Sevastopol into a graveyard for warships. So the fleet fled to Novorossiysk. They were betting that there, far from the front line and under the protection of the best air defense systems in the world, they would be safe. But Zanato Petroleum, which financed tanks, oil, which paid soldiers, the Cheskari's oil terminal, operated by the state monopoly Transneft, was the beating heart of this operation. There, gigantic tanker ships docked day and night, filling their holds with Russian black gold. Every barrel that left there was a coin for the war, and protecting all of this was the pride of Russian air defense. 12 launchers of the S-400 Triumph system, operated by the 1537th Kuban Anti-Aircraft Missile Regiment. Then came the night of November 13th. Putin had just launched a brutal attack on Kyiv, missiles falling on civilian buildings, the kind of terror he had repeatedly inflicted on Ukrainian cities, believing that the response would never reach Russian soil, civilians. But he was wrong. Because less than 24 hours later, the response came. But not in the way most people expect. First, the Ukrainian FP-1 drones came. Cheap, mass-produced, they started appearing on Russian radars. The S-400 operators saw exactly what they expected to see. A flood of aerial targets approaching. Then, they did what they were trained to do. They turned on their search radars, turned on their engagement radars. They started firing million-dollar interceptor missiles at targets worth only a few thousand. Every drone shot down was a victory, and each explosion confirmed the system worked. The Russian operators didn't know it, but they were being hunted. Those drones weren't the attack. They were the bait. While all the electronic eyes of the S-400 were fixed on the drones, while the launchers burned their expensive missiles on disposable targets. While every operator's attention was saturated, trying to keep up with the swarming, something else was coming in low, silent, deadly. It was the Neptune, a long-range cruise missile that can hit targets up to 1,000 kilometers away. It can fly at low altitudes and is highly maneuverable, and it's also completely invisible to a defense system that was looking in the wrong place.
Well, already a neighbor, sweet guy there. I'm going to fly. I'm going to take it down. Look at me. I'm already going to take it down. Take it down. Look at me. Me a damn every time I see.
Block like this, tie me a knot to fly, Sergeant.
President Zelensky would later confirm with restrained pride that this was the operational debut of the Long Neptune, produced entirely in Ukraine.
A missile that puts targets 1,000 kilometers deep inside Russia, within reach of Kyiv. A missile that changed the strategic map forever. But wait. Because here's the part that a lot of people didn't realize. The Neptunes didn't go after the launchers. That would have been a huge mistake. A waste of ammo, man. They went after the brain. The 92 N6 radar, called Gravestone by NATO military. This is the eye of the S-400. It's what illuminates the targets. It's what guides the missiles to impact. Without it, the launchers are blind. The second target was the 96 N6 radar, known as Cheeseboard. It's the early warning system, the first line of detection. Satellite images from November 11 show both radars intact. Images from November 15 show smoldering wreckage. Analysis from sources in the Security Service of Ukraine confirmed that 4 S-400 launchers were directly destroyed. But most importantly, the entire system was rendered inoperable. The remaining 8 launchers, even though physically intact, were now just expensive and useless metal, blind, deaf, dead. And then, with the shield down, came the second wave. The videos that the Turkish sailors recorded show what happened next. With the sky now unprotected, waves of Ukrainian drones descended on the economic heart of Novorossiysk. The Cheskar's terminal was hit with surgical precision, not random bombings, specific targets. The loading piers, where the tankers dock. The pumping units that push the oil through the pipelines. The pipeline infrastructure that connects everything. Each critical component methodically destroyed. Hours after the attack, Transneft was forced to issue a statement that must have been painful to write. All operations at the port of Novorossiysk are suspended. You can see the damage. We're talking about 20% of Russia's maritime oil exports. They were halted overnight. But the attack didn't stop at the port. There was another explosion captured in several videos. It was bigger and more violent. A fireball that grew and grew, followed by secondary detonations that lasted for minutes. Intelligence sources confirmed the target. Military Unit 52,522, a huge ammunition depot, possibly storing Caliber cruise missiles, the same type that Russia uses to attack Ukrainian cities. But here's the part that matters. That depot wasn't in a remote military area. It was in the middle of residential neighborhoods, surrounded by schools, surrounded by apartment buildings. When it exploded, the message was clear to every Russian watching. Your government isn't protecting you. It's not protecting you. The governor of Krasnodar, Veniamin Kondratiev, was forced to declare a state of emergency in Novorossiysk, in a country where the official narrative is strictly controlled, where admitting weakness is taboo. That statement was almost like a forced confession. The local services lost control, and the situation became chaotic. The official numbers tried to downplay the impact. 4 residential buildings damaged, 2 private houses, 1 civilian injured, 3 crew members of a ship hit by debris. But the numbers don't capture the panic. They don't capture the moment when everything changed. They break. The markets reacted immediately. Brent crude oil jumped from 2% to 3% as soon as the news spread, not because the world was running out of oil, but because the market realized something fundamental. Russian infrastructure is vulnerable. If Novorossiysk can be hit, if Russia's most protected port can be shut down, then nothing is safe. And there was another collateral victim. Right next to the Cheskariz terminal is the Caspian Pipeline Consortium terminal, which transports oil from Kazakhstan through Russia. And it was also hit. It was also shut down. Kazakhstan, a close ally of Moscow, now saw its own economy held hostage by Russia's inability to protect its own infrastructure. Now, here's what most analyses aren't telling you. To understand the true impact of the attack on Novorossiysk, we need to look at something that was happening in the shadows months earlier. Something that turned this attack from a tactical victory into a devastating strategic blow. Ukraine didn't just attack Novorossiysk, it attacked the entire system. Throughout the entire year of 2025, Ukrainian drones had conducted a methodical and relentless campaign against Russian refineries. Not the oil platforms, not the extraction fields, the refineries, the places where crude oil is turned into gasoline and diesel, into products that people actually use. Refinery after refinery was hit. Lukoil, Rosneft, Gazprom Neft. The facilities that kept the Russian domestic market running were systematically dismantled. And then something extraordinary started to happen. Something that no amount of Kremlin propaganda could hide. Russia, the third largest oil producer in the world, started to run out of fuel. Long lines formed at gas stations all over the country. Not in Kyiv, in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, in the heart of Russia. Farmers in Krasnodar, the breadbasket of Russia, couldn't find diesel for their tractors during the critical harvest season. The Kremlin, desperate, completely banned gasoline exports. It was a first-of-its-kind move. They gave up billions in export revenue just to try to stop the internal bleeding. But it didn't work. This is where the story becomes nearly unbelievable. Russia, swimming in oil, started importing fuel from Belarus, its much smaller ally. Just in September, it was 49,000 tons of gasoline and 33,000 tons of diesel. Stop and think about that for a second. Russia consumes more than 3 million tons of gasoline per month. Imports from Belarus covered 1.6% of the country's monthly needs, a band-aid to cover a big wound. But the story doesn't end there. On September 25th, something happened that seems like a movie script. A train carrying this desperately needed gasoline from Belarus to relieve Moscow's shortage was traveling along the railway line from Minsk to Smolensk and Moscow, the most important logistical corridor between the two countries. The train collided with a truck at a simple railway crossing. 18 tank cars derailed and exploded. The fireball was seen for miles. Millions of liters of gasoline turned into black smoke. Now, do you understand why this attack in Novorossiysk was so devastating? It wasn't just shutting down a port. It was shutting down the last escape valve. The attack on Novorossiysk didn't happen in isolation. It happened exactly when Ukraine's Western allies launched a different coordinated attack, a legal attack. In October and November of 2025, the European Union launched its 19th package of sanctions.
And Russia is increasing the attacks. It's increasing attacks against civilians, against civilian facilities. And this means that we need to continue supporting the fight for a just and lasting peace. This morning, we already approved the 19th package of sanctions, targeting the fleet, the banking and energy sectors of Russia.
117 ships of the Russian Ghost Fleet have been designated as fully banned from European ports, banned from insurance services. The United States went even further, with full blocking sanctions against Rosneft and Lukoil, the two largest oil producers in Russia.
These are tremendous sanctions. These are very big. These are against the two big companies. We hope they don't last for too long. We hope the war will be resolved.
Canada has sanctioned 100 ships. Japan has reaffirmed the price cap on Russian oil. And you know what's even more interesting? Even before the American sanctions officially took effect, major buyers started to back off. They began suspending purchases of Russian oil. But there's another consequence, darker and more personal. Putin's social contract with the Russian people was a simple agreement. Hand over politics to me, and I'll give you order, stability, and a predictable standard of living. That contract worked for 20 years. People kept their heads down, didn't ask questions, and in return, they had food on the table, gas in the car, a sense of normalcy. But the fuel crisis started to tear up that contract. All that stability evaporated in endless lines. Order was destroyed by the anger of drivers fighting for fuel. That predictable standard of living disappeared. And then came Novorossiysk, the untouchable city, the refuge of the elite, turned into a war zone overnight. The governor had to declare a state of emergency. Residential buildings were damaged. Explosions lit up the sky where families were sleeping. The message couldn't be clearer. The war has come home, and the Kremlin knows what that means. Each deep attack into Russian territory forces Russia to divert valuable units from the front line to protect strategic facilities. In the rear, refineries, ammunition depots, air bases, hundreds of targets spread over thousands of kilometers. Now, stop and think. If Novorossiysk, Russia's most protected port, under the umbrella of the world's best air defense systems, surrounded by military forces, considered untouchable. If that place can be turned to ashes in a single night, then what is safe? The truth is, there is no safe rear anymore. War. Well, she came back home. Now, I want to know your opinion. Do you believe that this strategy by Ukraine will have enough impact for Russia to back down? Leave your answer in the comments. I want to know what you think. If this video helped you understand what's really going on, share it with someone who needs to see this. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future analyses. See you next time.